My name is Avery Carter. I'm 34, and until recently, I was the only one keeping my parents' house from foreclosure. Last month, at a completely normal family dinner, my dad set his fork down and said, "Avery, we've decided you need to move out so your sister Taylor can move back in with us." My mom added without missing a beat, "But you'll still send the $2,200 every month at least until she's stable. You're doing so well, honey, and family helps family." 4 years of me paying almost their entire mortgage. 4 years of me giving up my downtown Jacksonville apartment and pouring over $38,000 of my own money into renovations they swore would one day be my inheritance. And now they wanted me gone, my room handed to my repeatedly unemployed little sister, while I kept wiring the money from wherever I ended up. I looked at them waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. I moved out 30 days later and gave them a surprise they never saw coming. If you've ever been the family bank account with an eviction notice, drop your story below. I read every comment. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happened next. Let's go. Looking back, the favoritism started long before money was ever involved. I grew up in the same house in suburban Jacksonville where everything I did had to be perfect, just to be considered average, while my younger sister Taylor Madison Carter, 26, now only had to show up to be celebrated. If I brought home straight A's, Dad would glance at the report card and ask why there wasn't a single A+. When Taylor, 8 years younger, came home with mostly B's and a couple of C's. Mom would hug her tight and say things like, "Look how hard our baby tried this semester." There were ice cream runs, new clothes, extra allowance. I got a pat on the back and a reminder that good wasn't good enough if I wanted to get anywhere in life. High school followed the same pattern. I worked weekends at the mall, saved every dollar, applied for every scholarship I could find, and still had to take out loans. I graduated valedictorian, earned a partial merit scholarship to the University of Florida, and spent the next 4 years balancing a full engineering course load with 25 hours a week at the campus tech center, just to cover the rest. My parents contributed exactly $5,000 total toward my degree. The rest was on me. I walked across that stage with honors in computer science, knowing I had earned every single line on that diploma. Taylor's college journey was completely different. The first time at 19, she decided she wanted to study graphic design in Savannah. Mom and Dad took out a Parent Plus loan and paid everything: tuition, dorm spending money, even a new laptop. 6 months in, she declared it wasn't creative enough and came home. Less than a year later, she was passionate about psychology and enrolled at Florida State. Same deal, full ride from our parents, no questions asked. That lasted 1 semester before she said the professors were too strict. Round 3 was marketing at a private school in Orlando. Again, Mom and Dad covered it all. She dropped out after 3 months because the vibe wasn't right. Each time she quit, they comforted her, told her she was just finding herself, and assured her the next thing would be perfect. Meanwhile, I had already started my career. Entry-level software engineer at a fintech company here in Jacksonville, grinding late nights, taking every certification I could, moving up year after year. By 28, I was leading a team pulling 6 figures and finally breathing a little easier. Taylor, on the other hand, bounced from one minimum wage job to another: barista for 4 months, retail associate for 5, front desk at a gym for 3, receptionist at a salon for 6. That was her personal record. Every time she quit or got fired, Mom and Dad had an excuse ready. The manager was jealous, the schedule didn't respect her creativity, the customers were rude. Family dinners always revolved around whatever Taylor was thinking about doing next. My promotions barely got a "that's nice, honey," before the conversation swung right back to her. It wasn't that I needed constant praise, I just wanted fairness. But fairness was never part of the equation. From the beginning, it was clear I was expected to achieve on my own, and Taylor was expected to be supported no matter what. That dynamic followed us into adulthood and set the stage for everything that came later. 4 years ago, everything shifted with one phone call. Dad Melvin Carter had just turned 61 and spent 27 years as a senior superintendent for a commercial construction firm in Jacksonville. When the company lost two major contracts after the pandemic slowdown, they laid off half the management team overnight. Dad was one of them. His severance barely covered 3 months, and the job market for someone his age in construction was brutal. Mom Alice Carter had been working part-time as an administrative assistant at a local elementary school for years, bringing in less than $18,000 a year. Between the two of them, they couldn't even cover the mortgage anymore, especially after they had refinanced the house twice to pull out cash whenever Taylor needed help with rent or deposits, in whatever city she was crashing in at the time. I was 30 then, doing well at the fintech company, living in a nice one-bedroom I loved. But when Dad called crying something I had never heard before, and explained they were already 2 payments behind, and the bank was sending letters, I didn't think twice. I offered to move back home and take over the bulk of the mortgage so they wouldn't lose the house. They were hesitant at first, but within a week we had an agreement. I would pay $2,200 a month, basically their entire principal and interest, plus utilities and groceries. In return, I got the master bedroom with the little office nook I needed for remote work days. The plan was supposed to be temporary, maybe a year or two, until Dad found something else. I gave notice on my apartment, packed everything into a moving truck, and drove out to the suburbs. The first weekend I was back, I sat down with them and asked what big repairs the house needed. The kitchen still had the same cracked laminate counters from the 90s, the bathrooms had peeling vinyl floors, and the HVAC was on its last legs. They laughed it off at first, said they were fine, but I could see Mom's face when she opened the fridge and the light flickered. I told them I wanted the place comfortable for their retirement, and that I saw it as an investment in the home that would eventually be mine anyway. They didn't argue. Over the next 3 years, I spent more than $38,000 of my own savings turning the house into something modern. New quartz counters, soft close cabinets, stainless appliances, luxury vinyl plank throughout the downstairs, a complete master bath remodel with a walk-in shower and heated floors, plus a full smart home setup, lights, thermostat, security cameras. Everything controllable from my phone. Every time a project finished, Mom would hug me and say this was why they were so proud to have a daughter who could take care of things. Dad would nod and tell me one day the deed would have my name on it. I believed them. Meanwhile, Taylor was rarely around. After her last college dropout, she had bounced between Miami, Tampa, and Atlanta, chasing whatever felt exciting that month. She'd move in with a new boyfriend, stay a few weeks or months, then split when things got serious or the rent came due. She worked odd jobs when she had to front desk at a tanning salon, bartender at a beach club, social media coordinator for a small clothing brand, but nothing ever stuck longer than half a year. Every time one of those situations fell apart, she would call Mom in tears, and somehow money would appear for a bus ticket home or first month's rent somewhere new. I didn't ask questions. I was just glad the house stayed quiet most of the time. Those 4 years felt stable on the surface. I worked from the home office 3 days a week, drove into the city. The other 2 came home to cook dinner with Mom most nights, and kept the bills paid without complaint. I honestly thought I was doing the right thing, securing my parents' retirement and keeping the family home safe. I never imagined they were already planning how to replace me in it. By the 3rd year, the little things started piling up. I would walk into the living room after a long day and catch Mom and Dad on the phone, voices low, the screen going dark the second they saw me. It happened 3, 4, 5 times in a single month. They always waved it off with the same awkward smile, saying it was just Aunt Linda or a telemarketer, but the pattern was too obvious to ignore. Then one evening, I logged into the joint household checking account to transfer the usual money for utilities, and noticed a recurring transfer I had never seen before, $400 every first of the month to the same account under Taylor's name, labeled emergency support. The transfers went back almost 2 years. I scrolled through the statements on my laptop in the office and counted 22 payments, almost $9,000 total, all coming out of the same account I kept topped up with my mortgage money. When I asked Mom about it the next morning while she was making coffee, she froze for half a second, then said, Taylor had been between jobs and needed a little help with rent. Dad chimed in from the table that it was only temporary and not to worry about it. A couple of weeks later, I went out to the garage to grab some tools for a small shelf project and found 6 brand new plastic bins stacked against the far wall. The labels were written in Mom's handwriting: Taylor's room, master bedroom, Taylor's clothes, Taylor bathroom stuff. One box was already open, overflowing with throw pillows and fairy lights I recognized from her old Instagram stories. I stood there staring at them, feeling the first real twist in my stomach. The slip came a few nights after that. We were eating leftover lasagna when Mom looked across the table and said almost casually, Taylor's lease in Atlanta fell through again, poor thing. She really needs a bigger space to get her life together, and you're so established now, Avery. You wouldn't mind if she took the master for a while, right? She said it like she was asking me to pass the salt. Dad nodded along, adding that I could easily find something else since I made good money and traveled for work sometimes anyway. I set my fork down and asked what exactly they meant by a while. They exchanged a quick glance and changed the subject to the neighbor's new dog. I tried again the following weekend. I sat them both down in the living room after dinner and asked straight out what was going on with the boxes and the comments. Mom's eyes welled up immediately. She reached for my hand and said they hadn't wanted to spring anything on me, that nothing was set in stone yet. Dad cleared his throat and told me Taylor was having a hard time and might need to come home for a few months, but they were still figuring out the details and didn't want me to feel pressured. When I pointed out that I was the one paying for the entire roof over our heads, Dad just repeated that family looks out for each other and they would talk more when the time was right. The conversation ended there, with both of them acting like I was overreacting for even asking. From that night on, the hushed calls became more frequent, the garage boxes multiplied, and every time Taylor's name came up, they changed topics faster than before. I started staying late at the office just to avoid the tension at home. Deep down, I knew something big was coming. I just never imagined how ugly it would actually get. It all exploded one Friday night at the end of September. I had just come home from the office, kicked off my shoes, and sat down for dinner when Mom set her phone on the table and hit speaker. Taylor's face popped up on the screen, hair in a messy bun, smiling like she was about to announce winning the lottery. Dad cleared his throat and didn't even look at me before he started talking. Avery, we've made a decision. You need to move out within the next 30 days so Taylor can move back home permanently. But you'll keep sending the $2,200 every month until she's fully on her feet. We're all family, and this is the best way to support everyone right now. I remember the room going completely quiet except for the hum of the fridge I had paid to replace. Mom reached over and patted my hand like she was delivering the weather report. Taylor waved at the camera and added, "Thanks, sis, I really appreciate it. I can't wait to have my own space again." I opened my mouth closed. It opened it again. Nothing came out at first. Then I managed a calm, "You want me to leave the house I've been paying for and still pay for it from somewhere else?" Dad just repeated that sacrifices have to be made for family and that I was in the best position to make them. 2 days later, on Sunday afternoon, the front door opened and Taylor walked in, dragging 2 huge suitcases and 3 duffel bags. She kissed Mom on the cheek, hugged Dad, gave me a quick side hug, and headed straight upstairs to the master bedroom like she had never left. By the time I followed her up, she had already kicked her shoes off onto the rug I bought last year and was rearranging the pillows on the bed. That same evening, I walked into the office nook to finish some reports and found her sitting at my desk, my work MacBook Pro, open Netflix playing on full screen. She had logged into her own profile and was scrolling job listings on the other monitor at the same time. I felt my stomach drop. Company policy is extremely strict about unauthorized users on work devices, especially with client data accessible. I asked her to close it immediately. She rolled her eyes and said she was only using it for 20 minutes and that I was being dramatic. I carried the laptop downstairs to put it away and found Mom and Dad in the kitchen. I explained as calmly as I could that this wasn't just any computer that I could actually get fired. Mom laughed it off and said, "It's just a laptop, Avery. You have 2 of them anyway. Let your sister use it. She's trying to get her life together." Dad added that family shares things and I needed to stop being selfish. That was the moment the dam broke. I told them this was insane, that I wasn't moving out and continuing to pay for a house I no longer lived in, so Taylor could treat it like a resort. Dad's face turned red. He said I was abandoning the family when they needed me most. Mom started crying about how ungrateful I was after everything they had done for me growing up. Taylor came downstairs right then, phone in hand, recording the whole thing, smirking like this was entertainment. I grabbed my phone, walked out to the back porch, and FaceTimed the one person who had always had my back. My best friend, Trinity Elise Thompson. She answered on the second ring, took one look at my face, and asked what happened. I turned the camera around so she could see Taylor still filming from the kitchen window and hear Mom crying in the background. Trinity listened for 90 seconds, then cut me off and said loud enough for me to hear every word, "Avery, you are done being their ATM. You need to protect yourself right now tonight. Call a lawyer first thing tomorrow and start packing. Do not let them guilt you for one more second." I hung up, walked back inside, looked at all 3 of them, and said the first completely steady sentence I had managed all weekend. "You have 30 days. After that, figure it out yourselves." That night, I didn't sleep. I planned. Monday morning, I took a personal day drove to a law office across town and sat down with an attorney who specialized in tenant and family financial disputes. I explained the entire situation: 4 years of paying the mortgage, living in the house, no written lease. She pulled up Florida landlord-tenant statutes on her computer and confirmed what I hoped. Since nothing was ever put in writing, I was legally a month-to-month tenant. All I had to do was give 30 days written notice, and I was free. No further financial obligation, no liability for the mortgage, nothing. She printed the exact notice form, told me to date it the day I planned to leave, and wished me luck. Back home, I locked myself in the office and started pulling records. Every bank statement showing the $2,200 transfers, every utility bill in my name, every receipt from the kitchen, remodel, the bathroom, the flooring company, the smart home installers. I built a spreadsheet that totaled $105,000 in direct mortgage payments over 48 months and another $38,000 in documented improvements. Grand total $143,000 out of my pocket, keeping that house afloat and upgraded. I saved everything to a USB drive and to the cloud. Wednesday evening, after they had all gone to bed, I drafted the email on my phone. Subject line: official 30-day notice and termination of financial support. The body was short and professional. I attached the tenant notice form and the full spreadsheet. I wrote that effective 30 days from the date of the email, I would vacate the premises and cease all payments of any kind. I reminded them of the total amount I had contributed and stated that I wished them the best moving forward. I hit send to both Mom's and Dad's addresses, turned my phone face down, and went to bed. Thursday morning, the house erupted. Mom was crying in the kitchen before I even poured coffee. Dad stormed into the office, waving his phone, face purple, yelling that I was destroying the family and abandoning them in their time of need. Taylor came downstairs in pajamas, eyes wide, asking what she was supposed to do now. I stayed calm, told them the notice was legal and final, and went to work. That same afternoon, I called the leasing office of a new high-rise downtown Jacksonville I had been eyeing for months. Penthouse, corner unit, 2 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, bigger balcony. Same monthly rent I had been paying toward the old mortgage because of a promotion I never told them about. I put down the deposit, signed the lease electronically, and scheduled the move for exactly 30 days out. The next 4 weeks turned into a nonstop campaign to change my mind. Mom left tear-soaked letters on my pillow begging me to at least keep paying half. Dad cornered me in the driveway, threatening to cut me out of the will, which made me laugh for the first time in weeks. Taylor alternated between screaming that I was ruining her life and sending me long texts about how a real sister would help family. When the guilt trips failed, the anger kicked in accusations of being cold, selfish, ungrateful. One night, Dad actually said if I walked away, they would make sure no one in the family ever spoke to me again. I just nodded, kept packing, and forwarded every nasty message to the same attorney in case I needed a restraining order later. By the 3rd week, Taylor realized the money was really going to stop. She started frantically applying to anything within 20 miles: gas station cashier, restaurant host, retail, whatever. Mom and Dad were making calls to refinance again, but with Dad's credit destroyed from the layoff and no income coming in, the banks weren't interested. The atmosphere in the house went from pleading to pure panic. I slept with my bedroom door locked, kept my valuables in the trunk of my car, and counted the days. The final 30 days were pure chaos. Mom and Dad took turns with every tactic they could think of. One morning, Mom sat at the kitchen island sobbing into her coffee, begging me to at least leave $1,000 a month until Taylor got settled. The next day, Dad cornered me in the hallway, shouting that I was throwing away my own family. By the end of the first week, they were tag-teaming. Mom would cry in the living room, while Dad paced, offering to put the house in my name if I just stayed and kept paying. I turned them all down every single time, quietly, firmly, and walked away. Around day 12, a thick envelope arrived from the bank addressed to Mom and Dad. I saw it on the counter, bright red, notice of default stamped across the front. They had already missed 4 payments since my last transfer. Dad disappeared into the garage for hours. Mom wouldn't look at me for 2 days. Taylor spent those weeks in full panic mode. She printed stacks of resumes, drove to every strip mall and fast food place within 20 miles, came home rejected over and over. I overheard her on the phone with friends asking to crash on couches because my sister is kicking us out. By the 3rd week, she landed 2 part-time jobs: morning shift at a coffee chain and evenings waiting tables at a sports bar. She came home exhausted, smelling like espresso and fryer oil, complaining that her feet hurt. And this wasn't the life she was supposed to have. The moving truck pulled up on day 30. I had hired professional packers the week before. Everything I owned was boxed and labeled. Mom and Dad stood in the doorway watching in complete silence, arms crossed, faces blank. Taylor followed the movers around the house crying, then stopped in the hallway and pointed at the new mini-split unit I had installed in the master bedroom last spring. "At least leave the air conditioner." "Avery, come on," she pleaded through tears. I looked at her, said nothing, and kept walking. I handed the keys to the moving foreman, climbed into my car, and drove downtown without looking back. The penthouse was everything the old house never felt like: quiet, mine, paid for by me, and only me. I blocked every number, every social media account, every email address connected to them that same night. For the first time in years, I slept 12 hours straight. 14 months later, out of nowhere, a Facebook message popped up from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. She asked if I had heard what happened. Mom and Dad couldn't catch up on the mortgage. The bank foreclosed, forced a sale, and after fees and penalties, they walked away with almost nothing. They now rent a 1-bedroom apartment in a rundown complex on the south side, living on Social Security and whatever Mom makes substituting at the school. Taylor still works the same 2 part-time jobs, shares a 2-bedroom with 3 strangers, and hasn't managed to save enough for even community college classes. I read the message, felt a brief wave of something, maybe sadness, maybe relief, then archived the chat and went back to my life. I got another promotion last quarter: travel, when I want host friends on the balcony with the river view and haven't heard a single word from any of them since the day I left. Sometimes walking away completely is the only way to protect yourself, and the only way the people who took you for granted finally learn the lessons you could never teach them while you were still carrying them. To everyone who made it to the end, thank you so much for listening to my story. If you've ever had to set a hard boundary with family or you're thinking about it now, let me know in the comments. Your experiences help others feel less alone. I read every single one. If this resonated, please like, share, and subscribe for more real stories every week. Take care of yourselves out there.